Welcome to the DL Gaming Podcast. You're getting the long intro today. This is the podcast where we add games, both old and new, to your backlog, one slightly inappropriate episode at a time. My name is Bobby, and my CPU is sweaty. Joining me today is Taylor.
Hey, I'm actually the podcasting alter of Taylor.
Perfect. Because this week we're going to be talking about The Alters and RoboCop Rogue City. But first, what's new? What's new with you, Taylor?
Well, we were recording this episode just a couple days after the 4th of July. So happy Independence Day to all the Americans out there. But what's really been on my mind lately is the news about Microsoft's layoffs, as well as something called the Stop Killing Games petition, which is happening in Europe. Shout out to our European listeners. But the Stop Killing Games petition seems to be about preventing the video game publishers from turning off servers that are required to play games. Like even, certain single player games require online DRM checks, etc. So they are trying to get legislation passed that will prevent publishers from kind of arbitrarily turning off their games. And the petition just hit its required goal to be considered. So I thought that was really fantastic news, especially in contrast with all the layoffs going on in the industry. How about you, Bobby?
Are there specific games that they are upset about?
Well, one of the ones that I saw mentioned immediately was The Crew. I never played that game, but it's a single player game that required online authentication, and the developers turned off those servers and made the game unplayable. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I'm sure we've all had a game that we love that's happened to. I mean, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Super Monday Night Combat. Sure nobody was playing that at the end, but it was sad to see that go. But yeah, games are a service these days, so it's not a guarantee. Even if you buy it, it's not a guarantee that that's going to be around in the future.
I definitely think there's something to be said too for single player games in particular. Something like Super Monday Night Combat requires a multiplayer community around it, but a single player game that you just can no longer play because someone flipped a server off somewhere, that is frustrating.
Yeah, I could see where that would be a little more egregious. Oh, all right. And I think we've got a listener question coming up about those Microsoft layoffs too.
Yeah, I'll touch on them more in the answer to that.
All right. This week, I just wanted to mention real quick, here's what's new with me. I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I had moved my gaming computer out of my case, the Fractal Torrent case, and into a Silverstone rack-mounted case. And I've been having some cooling issues. And I don't want to blame the case right away, but I realized that my Fractal design case had a fan controller built into it. It was a great case. Like, it was really well designed. But it had a fan controller built into it that powered all the fans, and then had one cable that went to the motherboard, and that's where it got its PWM control. So basically, the heat in the computer would tell the fans how fast to run and how much cooling they needed. So it did a really good job. And when I switched it over to the rack mount case, I hooked all the fans up directly to my motherboard, and I never bothered to go into my BIOS or UEFI and set up what's called fan curves. Now, a lot of you probably know what fan curves are, but that's basically saying if it reaches 45 degrees Celsius, then run my fans at 50%. If it reaches 70 degrees Celsius, run my fans at 80%. And on the graph, this looks like a curve. So the hotter your computer gets, the harder the fan, or the more RPMs on the fans to start cooling it more. So I never set that up. Not even on my CPU fan, apparently. So I had to go in and do that, and I'm hoping that fixed the problem. I played a little RoboCop today, and I was monitoring the temperatures. Everything looks okay, but the real test is going to be when I load up Helldivers again, because apparently that game really beats the hell out of my computer. Like, that thing was cooking. Could have cooked an egg on there. It's also just hot, man. It's July. I'm in San Diego. Like, it's just hot.
I had thought that one of the advantages of rack mounting would have been superior cooling.
Yeah, it can be. But I'm telling you, that Fractal design case was just like engineered very well for cooling. This one's fine too. I think it was the lack of the fan controller and the fact that I hadn't set up the fan curves. The case that I have it in is also designed for liquid cooling, which I'm not doing. I'm doing everything through air. I'm in kind of like a small room. I don't have a lot of good airflow in this room. Like, the rack is pointing straight up against a corner, so it's just like blowing hot air there. Like, it's not the best layout here, but you know, we'll see. I'll give you an update next week, and I'll let you know if my computer's still crashing from getting too hot.
What kind of temps were you hitting?
I mean, it was getting up there. It was probably, and by the way, I have a 13th generation Intel, a 13900K, which runs hot anyway. Like, just bottom line, these things run hot.
Power hungry and
and it was getting up to, I think, like 99, almost 100 degrees. Yeah, like, that's where it was maxing out, and it wasn't like averaging there, but it was tapping that. But like, my computer would just crash, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. That hasn't happened before. And then eventually I started to realize, like, you know what? I think this is a cooling issue. So then I started checking temps, and I was like, whoa, okay, we got a problem here. But the GPU is doing fine, apparently. GPU is nice and cool.
Thankfully, the modern day processors and motherboards have kill switches in them for when you go over temp.
It'll melt down. I mean, to be honest, I'm really not impressed with Intel, like, lately. I don't know where we're at with the ARM architecture, but my Mac Studio with Silicon, like, Apple has had Silicon for like 5 years now. Like, where are we at with ARM? I mean, let's go, people. Like, this shouldn't be like it is right now. But I don't want to go on a technical rant here. I feel like I've lost everyone already. So let's talk about the games that we played this week. So, Taylor, what did you play?
This week I played The Alters, which is a brand new game. It's also on Game Pass for those of you who are interested. And really, it's a game that's a little difficult to describe. The way I see it, it's almost like 3 games in one. You've got a resource crafting survival game, a worker management game, and then a base management game, similar to like Fallout Shelter. So you kind of end up with this like 3 distinct areas of gameplay that you need to navigate. And in this game, you start as a character named Jan, spelled like Jan, and you're the lone survivor of a spaceship landing gone wrong. You are an employee of a company called Ally Corp, and they seem to explore planets to extract resources. And the one that they're very particularly interested is called Rapidium, which is like this world's unobtainium. So you kind of get out of your capsule and immediately are presented with this alien world that you're on. And as you kind of run around looking for your fellow crew members and the base that also got deployed, you unfortunately discover that all the other crew have died. And but at least you do find your base pretty quickly. So you're able to get in there, get some shelter from the radiation and the storms on this planet. And one of the first things you do is, of course, is try to contact Earth. And when you do, whoever it is that you connect to on Earth, who's part of this Ally Corporation, tells you that you have, I think, 7 or 10 days until a sun is going to scorch the part of the planet that you're on, and just, eradicate all life. But fortunately, your base is a ginormous wheel that is designed to move around. So your first task is to gather the resources that you need in order to get your base running to the point where it can move before this sun cooks you. And then the alters of it all comes in. As you're doing so, you discover that you don't necessarily have the skills required to fix the engine of the base, and you don't have enough hands to do all the tasks that need doing. So there is, again, the Ally Corporation calls you after you find some of this rupidium, and they tell you to build a womb where you put the rupidium in and a DNA sample, and boom, you've cloned a sheep. Then after that, they ask you to go ahead and clone yourself too, and so you end up getting a crew of Yawns.
I feel like cloning solves so many problems in games. As far as plot holes go, it's just like, how do you explain someone just dying and coming back and trying again? Clone
them. The interesting thing about these clones is that they're not just straight clones of you. They are alters because there's a quantum computer that comes in the base, and it is able to, through techno magic, understand your entire life past and history and the major events that make up who you are, influenced your personality, put you on the track in life that you're on. And the computer is able to identify a place where it can split from your actual history, and then essentially simulate a new life path for the clone. So one of the very first clones you make, the split happens when you were 19. You had an abusive, drunk father, and the real Jan decided to stay, decide to leave home at 19 and strike it out on his own. And the alter, the computer, decides to have them stay there. And by staying there, it generates this whole new life path that you can actually go and look at each, big event in life to see what happened to them. And so by staying there, this Jan became mechanically inclined, and so he's the technician and is able to repair the base engine for you.
That's an interesting concept, and that works really well in a game because, everybody always has those what ifs about their life. What if I had made this critical decision or made a different decision at this critical juncture in my life? How would that affect me? And then that's a really fun way of doing it where you can take that and then all of a sudden they get a different set of skills.
Yeah, and the gameplay implications of it are really quite fun too, because you get to choose which type of alter you make when you make them. So your crew, the very first one, the technician, is part of the story. You have to make that one. But after that, it opens up. So the next one you can make could be a scientist, or could be, a miner, and the in-game effects of those differences result in things like, the miner is 50% faster at operating the mining equipment, or the scientist allows you to open up the research lab and start a tech tree.
So I'm trying to think of any other game that is like this. It seems like a really difficult game to describe, and I think that's because it just doesn't sound like any other game that I played, really. Like, can you draw any parallels? Or is this like totally different?
For me, this is a pretty unique game that I was finding it hard to describe. If you're someone who looks at our show notes, you'll see that I wrote quite a bit just trying to figure out how to describe it best. But it almost is like, it's not a game, but I draw parallels to like Black Mirror, like an episode of Black Mirror.
Okay.
And then the different parts of the game, aside from the altars, the actual gameplay of it, definitely have a lot of parallels. Like the resource gathering and survival aspect is similar to, like, it's very stripped down Satisfactory in a way. You need to go out and discover a deposit of minerals, and then by scanning, then you construct a mining machine outpost, and then you need to connect it to your base with these power poles, essentially.
Okay.
So that aspect, definitely easy comparisons, and I quite liked how they did that part of the game. It's not super grindy, and it has a fast travel system, so you don't have to run across this rocky plain every single time. But because of like this sun coming to scorch you, that ticking clock keeps the tension up. Then as far as, like I said, the base building really reminds me of Fallout Shelter. So you get this grid within the wheel of your base, and you can freely move around rooms and corridors, elevators.
Okay, so it's like a cross section, like an XCOM.
Yeah, very much reminds me of XCOM as well in that regard.
How much of the game is the crafting survival? Because I'm not like a real big fan of that, but there are games that kind of condense crafting survival into like a small enough portion of the game and give it like a purpose, like a beginning and an end. I'm thinking of like even like The Eternal Cylinder by Ace Team, or I guess to a lesser degree Subnautica, or Phoning Home, where like it is a crafting survival game, but it is also moving you forward and there's a point to it. I mean, this one sounds like it's doing like other things on top of that too, but is that like the core gameplay, the crafting survival?
I would say the crafting survival is necessary, but it's not the focus of the game. And I'm also not a big crafting survival fan, and I found it palatable. So I'm not as far. I haven't finished the game, so it could get more intense later on. But the actual amount of it is not bad at all.
Okay, I had the weirdest perception of this game based solely on the key art. If you look at it, it doesn't sound like the same game you're talking about. For some reason, I always thought this game was like not really a dating sim, but like a walking sim, just like a lot of dialogue and, choices matter, or this or that. Like I didn't realize. And if you watch some of the videos, you can see a lot of the crafting survival stuff in it, or the 3D adventure part, I guess. But yeah, this is turning out to be very different than what I had originally thought.
I'd say the more kind of genre that I would say like it's the main part is the management aspect. So both the management of your base as well as the management of your crew, the altars, and you need to do things to keep them happy as well. So and bond with them. So one of the things that you find running around outside is, one of the capsules that was full of the crew's personal effects, and you find a movie in it. And then you can watch the movie with your alters as a way to bond and grow your relationship. And then that makes them, one, more amenable to being ordered around, but also improves their productivity. And the actual management of your crew is more important than you personally running around and digging things out of the ground.
Okay. So it's more of like a management game, or it has that factor as well.
And the developers are the people who made Frostpunk. If that kind of gives you an idea of...
That's 11-bit studios?
Correct, 11-bit.
Yeah, they've got some good titles, so that's good pedigree right there. But how much is this game?
I'm playing it off Game Pass, so I didn't purchase it.
Okay. Yeah, because when I looked at the Steam page, I was kind of surprised how expensive it was. Although, I also
it's currently $34.99.
Yeah, which seemed high to me for it, but that's when I thought it was like a walking sim.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's a lot more to this game.
I'd say $35 is a fair price for it, in my opinion. I do have a couple of complaints. The 3D running around exploration could be better. Like the movement system is kind of very basic. You can only climb in this. There's a wall that that from older games back in the day when you could only climb a wall that looks like this piece of terrain. And so it has that, and the environment is like I said, it's rocky in a lot of places, and there's just things that look like you should be able to walk over and you can't. It's beautifully done, but that actual 3D exploration part is a little bit disappointing. And then the other complaint I would have is a lot of the cutscenes are montages of art or like drawn images, not like animated or rendered cutscenes. And I think, at least for me, that takes away a bit of the emotional feelings that you get. You're dealing with this alternate version of yourself. It's really kind of a heady concept. And that the voice actor who voices them does an amazing job, and the facial animations are great. And I want to see more of that than these kind of montages.
Are there any famous people doing voice acting here? I feel like they do a lot more stunt casting in video games these days.
The guy doing the voice here is not famous as far as I know, and it's just him. There's like a distorted voice of the person you talk to on Earth, but it's all the alters he also voices because they're clones. So I do agree with you. So many games have done the stunt casting, or especially after the first Death Stranding with Norman Reedus. Norman Reedus. There was a game recently that Will Smith was in. It was a Chinese game that Will Smith was in, and did the voicing for it, and it's terrible.
Becoming a lot more common. Not just the voice, but also the likeness of the person as well. I recently played Jedi Fallen Order, and they use that guy's voice, but also like the character looks just like the actual actor as well. Same thing with what was the game you were just talking about? Not Will Smith, but Norman Reedus in Death Stranding.
Death Stranding.
Yeah.
Do you find that takes away some of the immersion when you recognize like an obvious famous person.
Yeah, not so much. To be honest, video games, I don't get too immersed in them as far as story goes anyway. So it's like that's the least of their problems, in my opinion.
My personal thought on it is that why are we paying this dude whatever ungodly sum of money instead of hiring normal voice actors and putting that money to better use, making a fun game.
Yeah, that's that's also a complaint by a lot of voice actors, even outside of video games. I mean, probably video games now too, but with a lot of animated movies, when they started bringing in a lot of big names to voice characters, and some people will say that all started with Robin Williams in Aladdin. But ever since then, yeah, it seems like we've had just you always got to have a famous person attached, even if they're just doing a voice. And a lot of voice actors have spoken out against that because it's taken away work from them, and they are very talented, many of them.
And it's a tough industry to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a gig job basically. You're just like you're getting paid gig to gig almost, unless you have like a really successful show that is on the air for like 10 years.
I mean, even being in a super successful game doesn't guarantee much. Like I just saw an article about how a couple of the Baldur's Gate 3 voice actors said that that success hasn't translated for them into the rest of their career.
And I can understand that because it's not very visible. I mean, maybe people within the industry would recognize that or hire those people again, but yeah, you don't really build much fame being a voice actor, I imagine. And what I've also heard, I think this was in one of the books that I read about video games, but video game voice acting is incredibly grueling. It's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. It's like you show up to work, it's like, all right, we're going to do 45 different grunts.
Yeah.
And
they often don't see what they're voicing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be difficult. I do think it's getting a lot better, but I think they're involving like the creatives earlier on in the process, especially with these AAA games. But still, at the end of the day, it's a lot more work than voice acting for like a movie or a TV show, just by volume alone. Like you just need so many things for a video game. You have to create every sound.
Even the recent darling of a game, Claire Obscure, had Charlie something, the guy who played Daredevil in the Marvel or the Netflix series.
Yeah.
He came out recently and said, hey guys, thanks. I'm glad everyone loves the game, but I didn't do anything particularly. Like I did one day of work on this. And it, I took it seriously, but I shouldn't be getting praise the people who made the game.
Yeah, good for him, giving credit where it's due.
But speaking of voice actors, famous people, movies, I think that kind of might lead into the game that you played this week. Does that have for instance, the voice actor from the movie in it?
I don't think so. So I played RoboCop Rogue City this week, and the voice acting in this game, yeah, it is very well done. I don't think it's any of the original actors in this, but the people that they got to do the voices sound just like them. I mean, they really did a stellar job. It's unfortunately one of the few things that I really like about this game. So RoboCop Rogue City is just a really standard first-person shooter campaign. Like that's it. It feels like it's a game from 20 years ago. Very straightforward shooter, but it is very true to the original movies. And I'm talking about the first two RoboCops. They ignore the third one, as we all should. And really the only thing they get from the second one is Nuke, the fictional drug from RoboCop 2. But really they're just referencing everything from the first RoboCop, and there's all sorts of Easter eggs, and if you like the movies as much as I do, then like you get a kick out of it. But here's the problem though, like I love RoboCop, the movie. If I had to pick a favorite movie, I don't really believe in doing the whole "what's your favorite movie" thing, but if I had to pick one, it might be RoboCop. Um, but this game is just incredibly banal. It is like so bland, especially the first 2 to 3 hours of it. So I'm like conflicted here. This is an IP that I really, really enjoy, and I'm just like seeing RoboCop in the cutscenes and interacting with the characters. And oh my God, the police station looks just like it did in the movie, and the cruiser looks just like it did. Oh, that's the same shot of the wheel when he takes off and goes up the ramp, and all that nerdy stuff. Like that is all fighting the fact that I am super bored playing this game. So I'm going back and forth while playing this. I'm just like, this game is terrible, and then at the same time I'm like, oh, but it's the thing from the movie.
What's boring about it?
Well, I'll tell you. So the gameplay is just super basic. It is just you point your gun at things, you pull the trigger, and you shoot them. It feels completely on rails. And I think that's kind of meant to be like that because RoboCop is kind of like a tank. He's not very mobile. But the gameplay is just not dynamic at all. There's very little variation in the enemy types, and the new enemy types don't get introduced till way later in the game, and they aren't that different. There's also not a lot of like progression in the game. You get a skill tree eventually. Doesn't switch up the gameplay that much. And you also get to customize your weapon, the famous Auto 9 that RoboCop uses. And that's got a cool little crafting system in it, but it is by no means like it doesn't solve the problems that this game has. Like it's all pretty basic. Plus there's a ton of cutscenes too, which I'm not like a super big fan of, but it's RoboCop. So
is that an issue, do you think, with the developers just not doing the best that they could, or do you think there's a problem with the IP of RoboCop? Like there's only so much variation you can do. Like even hearing you say that there's a skill tree, it doesn't feel right that RoboCop has a skill tree.
Yeah, I mean, you got to work a skill tree into just about every game these days. So the developer Teon, they made the Terminator game, Terminator Resistance, I believe. I never played it, but it looks incredibly similar to this as well. And I could see how that would be a natural fit for them. RoboCop being kind of like a robot, clunky movements and stuff. I don't think it's really a problem. I think you can make an interesting game out of anything. You are a little more limited when you have an IP that you're working with, and you got to stay within the confines of that IP and make sure it's true to that. But I still think you can make an interesting game out of anything. I think the problem with this is it's just not that engaging of a game. And to be fair, like where I'm coming from with all this, I don't like AAA games because I find AAA gaming just incredibly bland in general. I feel like they're children's movies, It's just like they saw off anything unique, they sand off all the rough edges, and they make something that is just going to appeal to the widest audience possible and make the most money possible. And I've been playing video games all my life, and I've seen all that before. So I'm really interested personally in like the indie scene and what people are doing that's new and cool, and people that are taking chances with games. You don't take chances with like a AAA game. You got to make sure it makes its money, right? So I understand the business side of it, but I don't know. This got me thinking though, like where do you draw the line with this stuff? If you really like an IP, Harry Potter, Star Wars, whatever, like at what point is the game so bad that you're just like, I'm not enjoying this anymore, or you keep playing? Even Dune Awakening that recently came out. I mean, everybody's really liking that game. Everyone in our community is loving that game. What if it came out and it wasn't good? Are you still going to play it just because it's Dune and you still get to do all the Dune stuff? Like, I don't know. I think everyone's got like a different line, and it changes game to game too. But for me, like, I think my love of RoboCop is winning out here because I'm 3/4 of the way through the game and I'm going to finish it. And I mean, I don't know if it was the best use of my time, but I'm going to see it through and whatever.
That line I think obviously is different for everyone. I feel like I am almost conditioned to look at a big IP, especially movie IP, video game as bad to start with, because we had so many over the years of trying
it used
to make
to be
a
just a
game.
natural thing that you did. Like a big movie came out and there would be a video game to accompany it because everybody was talking about the movie. And a lot of times like those may have even been timed strategically. So like at the height of the movie's popularity, everybody was pick up the game. And we see this with everything like Jurassic Park, any new Star Wars movie, like even Mad Max had its
Although
own.
Mad Max was actually a pretty decent game, like, and that surprised me that I
think
enjoyed
that game
it.
surprised a lot of people. Everyone was talking about it. And you know what, though? I was a little critical of it when it came out, and I still kind of am. Emilio, former member, former podcaster on the show, talked about that as well. He loved that game. And I think people were just so worn out by like movie games that the expectations were incredibly low. So when Mad Max came out and it was actually kind of decent, then they were like, "Oh, this game's amazing," even though it may not have been as amazing as they thought. The other thing is too, like Mad Max was that game. It was Mad Max : something. I can't remember the name of the game, but I should look it up. But that was kind of a turning point too, because for the longest time, when a big movie came out and they said, "Okay, let's make a video game," the video game would copy whatever the most popular, profitable genre there was in the video game industry.
Right.
For the longest time, that was a first-person shooter. So we got a new Wolverine movie coming out. Let's make an X-Men movie or game that's a first-person shooter somehow, or or like then it turned into like Brawler what do they call those? Like Batman Arkham Asylum, those types of games where it's like an action brawler
beat 'em
combo.
up.
Yeah, that type of thing. So whatever movie came out, they'd make one of those games. So when Mad Max came out, they made an open world game. And I think that was like the first time.
Popular.
Yeah, that was what was popular. But I think that was the first time that we saw this like repetition of movie then game in the open world format. So I think that kind of caught people by surprise too and really helped it as well.
Well, yeah, because a lot of the times the games would feel either rushed or like you said, trend chasing, but obviously like almost perfunctory.
Yeah, exactly. And they were all those things because they just wanted to crank it out and make money while everybody was excited about that particular IP and the IP, and then they move on. And this doesn't really apply to RoboCop though, because like there's no new RoboCop movie that came out. I mean, the guy who did District 9, what's his name? I can't remember, but he was supposed to make RoboCop 2. Like,
really?
The old ignore the sequels, let's make a new sequel to the original movie type thing that confuses everybody with the timelines. But then like that got shelved, and I don't think there's any new like RoboCop on the horizon. So the fact that this game even came out is kind of surprising to me, but you know what?
Someone was passionate about it.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Judge Dredd. Like there's this old Judge Dredd game from like 2003.
I loved that game.
Yeah, me too. And it's like not like super great, especially by today's standards. But like I still go back and play it, and I love it. And I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, it was Judge Dredd.
And getting to be
Dredd
Judge Dredd was fun.
Yeah, and it had all the things from. It was by Rebellion. That's right. That's the ones that make all the sniper games. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and like it's got all the things about Judge Dredd, like you change the ammo types and stuff, and like it's it's just fun to be in that universe. This is how I feel about the Lego games. Like the Lego games are completely boring. Like they're it's the same thing over and over again. But it is kind of nice to re-experience Harry Potter, like the first movie, or re-experience one of the Star Wars movies through the Lego game. So, I mean, I'm not like totally bashing it. I think these games have their place, and people buy them, people play them. So, why not?
The most famous example that I can think of is the E.T. game that ended up in the landfill. But that just goes to show you just how long they've been making movies into video games. It's not a recent phenomena.
No, this has always happened and will continue to happen, for better or for worse. But for the most part, I think it's better, or at least like benign. It's not like we got bigger things to worry about, like massive layoffs and dark pattern games. So I'm not going to complain too much.
If a mediocre RoboCop game is what it takes to keep people employed, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, let's do it. All right. So that's what we played this week, but let's talk about what we want to play. Taylor, what do you got?
So I saw this game just kind of randomly browsing. It's called Lost in Random: The Eternal Die. It is a hack and slash roguelike game that seems to be inspired by Hades and the games like Hades. That kind of top down or maybe isometric view, and you run around killing enemies. This game though has its own unique twist, being that you have a living die companion, die as in like a one you'd roll. And what it advertises is that there is an emphasis on risk versus reward during the combat to kind of give it its unique twist, but also to influence the gameplay style. And that to me is pretty attractive. I like that idea that you can strategize when to put all your cards on the table, for instance. And speaking of cards, I think there's cards in this game too. So I haven't done a ton of research on it, mainly because I want to go into it blind. But my hope for it is that I end up really liking it, because I've never played one of these types of games. I've never played Hades. I've never played any of the other similar Hades likes. So if this ends up being something I find fun and enjoyable, then I've got a whole new genre of stuff to try. So
then you'll have to go back and play Hades and all those other ones. But
I feel like I'm the only person who hasn't played it.
I tried them, and I'm like literally the only person in the world that didn't like Hades. So
You didn't like it?
I didn't care for it. Yeah. So you can't trust any of my opinions, is what I'm saying. Like, I have no idea. Is it the
genre of it that you don't like the action genre, or?
Well, I think those games really favor controllers over keyboard and mouse, and as we all know, I'm terrible with the controller, so that was an issue. But yeah, I don't know. I also played it like after the hype died down and everybody had like hyped it up beyond belief. So maybe my expectations were a little too high, but yeah, I don't know. It also, like, maybe I just have bad taste in games. That's also a possibility.
I don't know about that. I agree with you on a lot of your takes, even though I know some of them are unpopular, but
yeah, I got some real doozies sometimes. But I'll tell you a game that is amazing, though, and that is Awesomenauts. That's what I want to play this week. So Awesomenauts is a 2D 3v3 MOBA from 2014. So why am I talking about it today? I mean, this game was released 10 years ago because it's making a comeback. This game was developed by Ronimo Games, and they declared bankruptcy in 2023, just a few years ago. When that happened, all the servers went offline. The game was dead. We talked about that earlier in the show. Sometimes that just happens. It's unfortunate. But Atari came in and saved the day. They bought this game. They reverted its patch back from, I think, 4.7 to 3.2. So they went back a couple patches. They changed it from a free to play to $19.99, and they're working on a premium version, which is currently in beta. And I think they're going to release it later in July. So Atari's putting some effort into this game. They're going to make it, well, number one, playable, and number two, supported. I mean, we can play Awesomenauts again. And this, first of all, I love this game back in the day. Like the 2D MOBA is, if you haven't played one, check it out. There was another one called Hyper Universe. It never really took off. None of these 2D MOBAs ever did. And I think the problem is they're a little too casual for the competitive player and a little too competitive for the casual player. They kind of sit in this weird area. But for someone like me who really likes both casual and competitive games and just doesn't have the time to get into like a really complex MOBA like Dota or League of Legends, like this game, Awesomenauts, is just like in the perfect spot for me. It's also got a great visual style. It's done like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's got a like Saturday morning theme song too. It just sounds like something out of the 80s. Like it's just, they did a fantastic job with this game. And I don't think it ever really got the credit it deserved. I still run into people who are like, oh yeah, I love that game. I've got like 800 hours in it. Like they're out there, dude. The people are out there. Like this is a good game. And if you don't know about it, like it's like, you got to check it out, man. Like I really hope that this game, like what Atari is doing, is going to give this game a second life. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's so hard to do with a game. I mean, it does happen, but it's incredibly difficult to do. And I don't think Awesomenauts was ever really like achieved the level of success that it deserved or that other MOBAs had. So it's an uphill battle for sure, but I'm just happy that it's out there. It's playable. I was playing the other day. There's like maybe 60 to 100 people playing a day. Not much, but enough people to get a game in. And that's all I care about, man. Like go ahead.
It's so strange. Like this is the opposite track of like most games. Most games go from being paid to free to play to try to save them. And then, you know,
which they did. This game did originally have a price tag. It wasn't very much. It was super cheap.
I bought it when it came out back in the day. It was
probably like 10, 15 bucks. I think they had it on sale from time to time for like $3. Plus you can buy skins and packs of skins. But yeah, it eventually went free to play because that's what all these MOBAs do. And then it is interesting that Atari flipped it and said, no, we're charging $20 and we're making it a premium game. But I guess $20, you get all the characters. Like that seems like a fair deal to me.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like Smite did, where it was free, but if you paid, I don't know, $30, you got all the gods.
Yeah. And this is a game that I have played since its release. Like I've been coming back to this game for 10 years off and on, just kind of checking in with it to see how it's doing. And every time it's a lot of fun, you know, it runs its course, but then like, you know, what else can you really expect from a game? Like
my favorite character is the duck that looks like Howard the Duck. I think the character's name is Rocco, maybe something like that. But no, I agree with you. This is super cool that like that someone decided to buy it and bring it back to life. Interesting that it's Atari of all companies, and it makes you wonder how like, that discussion went. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's definitely something I want to be playing. So maybe more on that next week. Before we get out of here, let's check in with our community. Quick shout out. This episode is brought to you by Truthbringer. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Also, everyone who has supported the show through Patreon. That really helps us out. Thanks, guys. All right. We got some listener questions here. We got a few from Warconius. So Warconius commented on something that we had talked about last episode. He says, just wanted to add to the conversation about enjoying games more that have a definitive ending. Do you think this has to do with older gamers being comforted by the Aristotelian notion of catharsis and the existential closure it offers? You know, unlike their own impending journey toward the great game over screen. Or are we just finally too tired for endless side quests? You know what? I think he's being funny, but I think there is some truth to that.
A little facetious, but...
Well, I've talked about this with movies and TV shows too. Like I was listening to a podcast with, I don't know, some director or something, but he said something very interesting that really made sense to me, because I always thought, why do I enjoy movies more than TV shows? And this guy was talking about the same thing. And he said, there's a finality to movies. There's a birth, life, and death in movies. Like it has a beginning, middle, and end. And, TV is episodic. You don't really get that. You just kind of string it along for as long as people stay interested. And the
most shows reset themselves back to baseline at the end of every episode.
Yeah, well, like a 90s sitcom would. I mean, now we're getting more into that, like what I guess was like the British style of TV with the miniseries. So that's become a little more popular. So you do see like a season will have an arc like that. But yeah, I think that carries over to video games for me too. Like I just like to have a finality to it. I like to close the book, like finish the chapter. But
I want something that I'm working towards, a goal that is there, and the ending is that. Like, I don't want to play a game that has no closure.
But at the same time, I do appreciate that games can just be anything that they want, like anything that people find fun. Like I like that freedom too. But I don't know, because there's plenty of games that I play that just don't have an ending or don't really are not that type of game, like Team Fortress 2 or something. It's not like... Well,
that's a different... Yeah, it's
completely different
There's
genre.
An ending to each match, I suppose. But, the genre, I guess. Yeah. But so many of like crafting survival games, one of the things I don't like about them is that there's no ending. Or like, what are you working towards? If you're going to spend 500 hours punching trees and digging up rocks to make something, but what's the point?
Yeah, like if it's not a multiplayer co-op or versus other players, then I typically favor games that have an ending like that. But I don't know. If you disagree, let us know in Discord.
Oh, I'm sure people are going to disagree with that.
Next question from Morconius. He says, Microsoft laid off about 9,000 people and their stock reached a 5-year peak. Reports are coming in that upcoming games from Romero Studios, ZeniMax, and Rare were canceled. I'm paraphrasing here. This was quite a long one. The silver lining is that a lot of talent has been released from the shackles of a big corporate master and can potentially make their own indie masterpieces. I know that this is a very cold way of looking at the situation, but what are your thoughts? Is it a good business move by Microsoft? Are big companies being wasteful and just churning and burning to try to make stockholders happy? And will this be a good thing for the indie side of games? Ooh, it's a lot to unpack there.
That's a big question. I want to address a little bit about some of the titles that we know for sure are now canceled. A couple that I was looking forward to, one of them being Perfect Dark. The new Perfect Dark remake by Crystal Dynamics is canceled. Rare was developing a game called Everwild. That is canceled. ZeniMax / Bethesda was developing a new MMO. That was canceled. As Warconi said, the Romero Studios game, that was going to be a new shooter. I'm John Romero's a legend in that regard. But one of the big and surprising ones is Forza Motorsports is no more. They are going to focus purely on Forza Horizons, I guess, but no more Forza Motorsports.
Interesting.
So those are kind of the big ones. But to get back to Warconius' question, a good business move, I don't know, probably from a CEO's perspective, if their stock hit a 5-year peak. Long term, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This plays into like a bigger debate that seems to always be happening in video games about the evil giant corporations and the creative indie artists who are just trying to make their beautiful games. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and layoffs are a pretty big part of business. I mean, it's an easy way for a company to turn profits. So it's kind of unfortunately going to happen. I don't know if this is really going to translate into anything good for indie games. I think there's always going to be an indie scene, and
yeah, I don't know that it will. So, okay, there's a lot more developers that are without jobs at the moment, but I doubt that. First off, that 9,000 people was Microsoft as a whole, not just the gaming division.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those people that are laid off were middle management, not necessarily the creatives or the developers.
And let's be honest, dude, like if you've ever worked an office job, then there's that one dude who just kind of shows up every day and you're like, what does this guy even do? I don't know. I'm totally playing devil's advocate here, but yeah, I don't really understand like the business side of the video game industry like at all, and I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I understand that like a lot of these like big budget games make a lot of money and that's what draws everybody's attention, and I don't know how easy it is to make a living off of being an indie developer. I know those are the games that I really enjoy playing, so of course I want to see that, but you know what, if you want to make a better living or a more stable income and you can do that with working on a big budget game, then I'm not like gonna look down on someone for that, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that this is necessarily going to be a like flashpoint that's going to make a bunch of new indie development studios appear. But is it a good thing for the indie side of games as a whole? I don't think so. I think the industry being turbulent and people feeling job insecurity is not going to help.
Well, I don't think the problem that
gaming.
the indie scene has is untalented developers. Like, I don't think an influx of super talented developers into the indie scene is really going to move the needle much. I think we already got a lot of incredibly talented people making small games. I think the biggest challenge for indie games is visibility, like getting your game seen and in front of the right audience. So, and that's just kind of the nature of the indie scene, though. I don't know. I hate these questions because it shows how little we know about anything. Really,
we're
really
not
reveal
experts.
my ignorance when you ask the deep questions. Okay, this is my type of question from J Beck Quest. Describe your ideal party. I'll tell you my ideal party. DLG Con. It's a party every year, man. That's the best. If you don't know, DLG Con is when a lot of people from the podcast community meet up. In all parts of the world. This year it's going to be in Wisconsin. We just get together, we hang out, we play video games, we play tabletop games, bunch of Magic the Gathering, we have a few drinks, we eat a bunch of good food. A lot of people love to cook, and it's just a blast for a couple of days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, DLG Con is definitely one of my ideal parties to look forward to it every year. I can't wait for this one in Wisconsin. The fact that we move them around as well is always fun. Getting to go see a new place, or the community picks out these houses that we rent, and a lot of them are very unique houses. So it's always kind of fun to go through this bizarre 16 bedroom house.
Yeah. And I think we still got spots open for this DLG Con.
We do.
I believe we do. So if you want to head down to our Discord, just go to dlgaming.net. You can get to our Discord from there, and you can see what's going on with DLG Con. You can ask about it, or just look at pictures or look at the discussion around it. Like if you're curious, check it out, man. It's worth looking into. It's we've been doing this for this might be our 7th year, I think.
7, I think. We did have one year that was virtual.
Yeah, we kind of took a year off. So yeah, this is kind of the 6th one. Well, we've been doing it for a long time though. And every time has been a ton of fun. Never had a bad time, never had a problem. So, and
we've never not had a great turnout. Yeah. You might be thinking, oh, a bunch of internet people are getting together for a gaming thing. That must be weird and awkward. No, it's not.
No.
Everyone's always friendly and fun, open, you know, to having a good time. You know, so yeah,
Right.
check us out. Hit us up on the Discord. You can hit me up directly, and I'm happy to tell you all about it.
Yep. dlgaming.net. All starts there. Okay, let's wrap this up. Again, my name was Bobby, and joining me today was Taylor. Thanks for being here. Christian was supposed to be on, but his flight got delayed, so he'll be joining us next week. Let's hope. And you'll want to tune in next week because he's going to be talking about Death Stranding. It's a little bit of an old one, but apparently he's never played it. I'm really interested to hear his take on that. It's not the type of game I would expect him to play, especially with Dune working out. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say about Death Stranding. And as we always like to do, we like to end the show. I say always, but we've been doing this for like 2 weeks. We're going to end the show by playing you out on a music track.
Real quick, right before we do that, once again, in the Discord, I am making a thread tonight for all of you to give us ending song suggestions. The instructions for submissions will be there, but once again, dlgaming.net. All right.
Okay, we're going to play you out on Blood Moon. And this is from 7 Days to Die.